ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. I have missed the classes, as I hope you have also missed the classes. Okay.
It was very strange to not have a class on Saturday.
Okay, so we are on the last khanda, the last section, and I will request Tanmay to do the chanting.
Acharya of the Dvitiya Khanda?
Of the third chapter, third adhyaya, Dvitiya Khanda, 3-2. Starting with Savedaitat Paramam Brahma Dhama.
Savedaitat Paramam Brahma Dhama.
Savedaitat Paramam Brahma Dhama.
Yatra Vishwan Nihitam Bhati Shubhram.
Yatra Vishwam Nihitam Bhati Shubhram.
Upasate Purusham Yehya Kamaha.
Upasate Purusham Yehe Kamaha.
Te Shukram Etad Ativartanti Dhiraha.
Te Shukram Etad Ativartanti Dhiraha.
Kamanyah Kamayate Manyamanaha.
Kamanyah Kamayati Manyamanaha.
Sakama Bhirjayate Tatra Tatra.
Sakama Bhirjayate Tatra Tatra.
Paryapta Kamasya Kritatmanastu.
Paryapta Kamasya Kritatmanastu.
Ihaiva Sarve Praviliyanti Kamaha.
Ihaiva Sarve Praviliyanti Kamaha.
Nayamatma Pravachane Nalabhyaha.
Nayamatma Pravachanena Labhyaha.
Na medhaya na bahuna shrutena.
Na medhaya na bahuna shrutena.
Yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyaha.
Yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyaha.
Tasyaisha atma vivrinute tanum swam.
Tasyesha atma vrinute tanum swam.
Nayam atma balahi nena labhyaha.
Nayamatma balahinena labhyaha.
Nacha pramadat tapaso vapyalinga.
Nacha pramada tapaso vapyalinga.
Etair upayair yatate yastu vidvam.
Etair upayair yatate yastu vidvan.
Tasyaisha atma vishate brahmadhama.
Tasyesha atma vishate brahmadhama.
Samprapyainam rishayo jnanatriptaha.
Samprapyenam rashayo jnanatriptaha.
कृतात्मानो वीतरागाः प्रशान्ताः
कृतात्मानो वीतरागाः प्रशान्ताः
ते सर्वगं सर्वतः प्राप्य धीराः
ते सर्वगं सर्वतः प्राप्य धीराः
युक्तात्मानः सर्वम् एवाविशन्ति
युक्तात्मानः सर्वमेवाविशन्ति
वेदांत विज्ञान असुनिश्चितार्थाः
वेदान्त विज्ञान सुनिश्चितार्थाः
संन्यास योगात्यतयः शुद्ध सत्वाः
संन्यास योगाद्यतयः शुद्धसत्त्वाः
ते ब्रह्मलोकेषु परान्तकाले
ये ब्रह्मलोकेषु परान्तकाले
परामृताः परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे
परामृताः परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे
गताः कलाः पञ्चदश प्रतिष्ठाः
गताः कलाः पञ्चदश प्रतिष्ठाः
देवाश्च सर्वे प्रतिदेवतासु
देवाश्च सर्वे प्रतिदेवतासु
कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा
कर्माणि विज्ञानमयश्च आत्मा
परे व्यये सर्व एकीभवन्ति
परे व्यये सर्व एकीभवन्ति
यथा नद्यस्यन्दमाना समुद्रे
यथा नद्यस्यन्दमाना समुद्रे
अस्तं गच्छन्ति नामरूपे विहाय
अस्तं गच्छन्ति नामरूपे विहाय
तथा विद्वान् नामरूपाद् विमुक्तः
तथा विद्वान् नामरूपात् विमुक्तः
परात् परं पुरुषम् उपैति दिव्यम्
परात् परं पुरुषम् उपैति दिव्यम्
सो यो ह वै तत् परमं ब्रह्म वेद
स यो ह वै तत् परमं ब्रह्म वेद
ब्रह्मैव भवति नास्य ब्रह्मवित् कुले भवति
ब्रह्मेव भवति नास्या ब्रह्मवित् कुले भवति
तरति शोकं तरति पाप्मानं
तरति शोकं तरति पाप्मानं
गुहाग्रन्थिभ्यो विमुक्तो मृतो भवति
गुहाग्रन्थिभ्यो विमुक्तो मृतो भवति
तत् एतत् ऋचाभ्युक्तम्
तदेतदृशायुक्तम्
क्रियावन्तः श्रोत्रिया ब्रह्मनिष्ठाः
क्रियावन्तः श्रोत्रिया ब्रह्मनिष्ठाः
स्वयं जुह्वत एकर्षिं श्रद्धयन्तः
स्वयं जुह्वत एकर्षिं श्रद्धयन्तः
तेषाम् एवैतां ब्रह्मविद्यां वदेत
तेषाम् एवैतां ब्रह्मविद्यां वदेत
शिरोव्रतं विधिवद् यैस्तु चीर्णम्
शिरोव्रतं विधिवद्यैस्तु चीर्णम्
तदेतत् सत्यं ऋषिरङ्गिराः पुरोवाच
तदेतत् सत्यं ऋषिरङ्गिराः पुरोवाच
नैतद् अचीर्णव्रतोऽधीते
नैतदचीर्णवतो धीते
नमः परमऋषिभ्यो नमः परमऋषिभ्यः
नमः परमर्षिभ्यो नमः परमर्षिभ्यः
नमः परमऋषिभ्यो नमः परमऋषिभ्यः
नमः परमर्षिभ्यो नमः परमर्षिभ्यः इति मुण्डक उपनिषत् समाप्तम्
इति मुण्डक उपनिषदं समाप्तम्
Okay, so you guys need some practice and I would highly recommend you to join the class being conducted by Tanmay ji on, I think, Saturday evenings. Today evening is the class, right, Tanmay?
Yes, Acharya, at 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right. So now let's look at this. We are on the last section, last khanda. So Tritiya Mundake, Tritiya Khanda. So he says, Saveda etat paramam brahmadhama. Such a person, Saveda, that person, etat paramam brahmadhama, who knows that supreme Brahman, which is the adhishthanam, the substratum of the entire universe. So Dhama here means adhishthanam, which is the substratum of the entire universe. So such a person who knows. And remember here, Veda. So Veda here is not the Shastram. Veda here means knows. So if the Veda as the scripture is being referred to, you will find that Veda has a Visarga after that, the two dots. So wherever the Shastram is referred to, it will be Vedaha. Without the Visarga, the word Veda is a verb, a Kriya Pada. So from Vidhatu, indicating knows. So Savedaha, he knows. He knows what? Tad Brahman Aham Asmi. That Brahman I am. That is the knowledge. Whenever we say the one who knows Brahman, this is the only way that you can know Brahman. Tad Brahman Aham Asmi. Brahma Asmi. That is the only way one can know Brahman. And then he uses the adjective Paramam Dhamaha. Why? He says, Yatra Vishwam Nihitam. That abode, that substratum, in which the entire universe, Yatra Vishwam Nihitam, the entire universe is supported, is resident in, has its very basis, not that Brahman. And what is the nature of the Brahman? Bhati Shubhram. It is a self-revealing, pure consciousness. And that's why we say Ishvara is Vishuddha Sattva, is Vishesha Shuddha Sattva, is a very, very pure Sattva Guna. And Jnani, of course, being Ishvara, is also Vishuddha Sattva. In fact, there is a small little verse, Dvai Rupe Vasudevasya. Characha charam evacha. Charam Sannyasinam Rupam. Acharam Pratimasu cha. Look at the words. Dve Rupe Vasudevasya. So Vasudeva here is Ishvara. Vasudevasya Dve Rupe. There are two forms of Ishvara. And what are they? Charam cha acharam evacha. One is moving and one is non-moving. Then charam sannyasinam rupam. The moving form is that of the sannyasi. Acharam pratima sucha. Pratima is a murti, a idol. The non-moving form of Ishvara is are all the idols in the temples. And the moving form of Ishvara is the sannyasi. So that is a very beautiful little verse, often quoted by Shankara. Because for Shankara, any human being means sannyasi. So here that's, sorry. So, therefore, in our tradition, the Jnani is worshipped because he is considered to be the very form of Ishvara. And then he says, Hyakamaha. So that has to be broken. Ye, he, akamaha. So it is not kamaha, it is he, akamaha. People who are akamaha, people who are not interested in worldly benefits, people who are no desires, which means people who are interested in moksha, mumukshus. So they have no desires in dharmartha kama. Their only desire is in the area of mumukshutvam, of moksha only. And such a jnani, upasate purusham. So purusham upasate. People approach this jnani and they worship him. And what do? They ask for knowledge. Obviously, we all know, it's been repeated time and again, that knowledge, Shastric knowledge, can never be given unless asked for. So upasate purusham. All people who are interested, Vedantic seekers, they approach this jnani and they are asking for knowledge. And these people are referred to as dhiraha. The people who ask for knowledge are dhiraha. People who are ready to receive. People who are sadhana chatushta sampannam. They are called dhiraha. Te dhiraha. So dhira refers to the person who has got viveka vairagya, basically representing sadhana chatushta sampatti. And what happens to such people? They come to this jnani, they ask him for knowledge, the jnani teaches them, and etad ativartanti, they cross over. Etad ativartanti, they cross over. What? Shukram. So Shukram, do you remember the meaning of Shukram? We discussed it in some other context. What is Shukram? Nobody? We discussed in the context of Shrishti.
Sperm?
Yes. Shukram is male seed, the Purusha Bijam, the seed in the male body. So literal meaning is Shukram, but in the context of Shukram etad ativartanti, they cross over. How would you interpret that? They cross over the Bijam. Means what? You have to learn to interpret. What do you mean when you say cross over this Shukram?
Go beyond birth and death,
Meaning?
meaning samsara, go beyond samsara.
Yeah, Shukram here represents what? Birth and death, Punarjanma, right? So, Ativartanti etat Shukram means they have crossed over, they have gone beyond Punarjanma, they have got moksha. So, this kind of interpretation you must do. Unless you learn to interpret this way, keeping the context of the verse in the mind, you can get extremely, irrelevant interpretations. So, he leaves it behind. He is no longer bound by Punarjanma. Okay. Now the point is, do you see any problem here in this verse? See the context again. He's saying that he crosses over Punarjanma, he crosses, gets moksha basically. But what is the context of this verse? And what is wrong? In the interpretation that you can take, what is wrong?
That the jiva is being born in the first place.
No. Look at the verse. What does the verse say? It first says, Sa Veda etat paramam brahmadham. Okay. The one who was understood the Paramadhamma. And it defines paramam dhamam. Yatra vishwam nihitam bhati shubhram. Then what is it? Upate purusham yahi kamaha. So yahi kamaha is the jnani. And even if you take it as Ishvara, upasate purusham. What is the person doing? This
Worshipping
upasana.
the jnani.
Exactly. So if you worship the jnani or worship Ishvara, how can you say Shukram etad ativartanti?
Oh, duality. Because it is.
So the question here is, can you interpret upasate as mere worship, or do you need to interpret it as Shravanam, Maranam, Nidhyasana? What is the interpretation going to be?
I think Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasana.
Yeah, more or less, but in a broader way. So he worships the jnani, or he goes to the jnani and he does puja with the correct attitude, and then what does that give you? It gives chitta shuddhi, and then he will ask for knowledge, and then there will be Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and that study alone will give you Atmagyanam. Then only does he get beyond the Punarjanma. So wherever these words are there, the entire contextual meaning has to be taken along with the flow of the Upanishad. What is the Upanishad saying? So whenever we study Upanishad, you will find that there are some portions which talk about jnanam, some portions which talk about upasana, but the words used are the same. Sometimes they say upasate, and sometimes they say jnanam. They use the word jnanam for upasana, they use the word upasana for jnanam. And therefore, in understanding the entire contextual flow of that particular chapter or the khanda has to be seen, then only can you pull out the meaning. Okay, so that is why from now on we are going to have a lot of question answers, because you have to understand how to interpret. Without the interpretation being clear in your mind, it becomes very, exercise which has no meaning at all. Study of the Upanishad. So the question is, can a spiritual seeker go beyond Punarjanma, which means what? Get Videha Mukti merely by worshipping the Jnani? No. It is the entire sequence is indicated here. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana. Everything is there. Chitta Shuddhi has to come, then only study can happen. So moksha can happen only as a result of, extremely clear and directed effort. There is no such thing as accidental moksha. One doesn't get moksha accidentally. You have to have an effort, you have to know what you want, and you have to work towards that. Okay. Now we look at the second mantra. So the second mantra says, Kaman yaha kamayate manyamanaha. Kaman yaha kamayate manyamanaha. Sa kamabhir jayate tatra tatra. Paryapta kamasya kritat manastu. Ihaiva sarve praviliyanti kamaha. Okay. Now let's look at the individual word meanings. So saha. Saha is that person. Yaha kamayate. So that he who. Saha yaha means he who. That person kamayate, who desires kaman. Kaman are objects of desire. And how does he desire? Manyamanaha. Consistently, constantly thinking about that. What happens to him? So you break that, sa kamabihi jayate tatra tatra. Jayate, that person jayate is born. Tatra tatra. Tatra tatra means among those kaman, among those desires he is born. And kamabihi, again he is having the same old desires. That is why he is being born. In the world where those desires are there, it is possible to gratify those desires. And then he says, but what? Kritat manaha, for a person who has got all his desires fulfilled. In other words, a jnani, for a person who has transformed himself so that desires are no longer there. And therefore he says, paryapta kamasya. Paryapta kamasya means all desires have been fulfilled. Kamasya paryapta. All desires have been fulfilled. Sarve kamaha. All desires have been fulfilled. Sarve is the fourth lines, the second word, and kamaha is the fourth word. You have to connect them. Sarve kamaha. All desires have been fulfilled. How are they fulfilled? Because we all know that all desires can never be fulfilled. And therefore he says, praviliyanti. Those praviliyanam is a dissolution of. So all those desires, they dissolve. Where? Ihaiva, in this world itself. Okay. So this desire, again we're talking about the same thing. Desires are the cause of rebirth. Because wherever you have kamaha, a desire, that will guide all your actions. And at the time of the death of the physical body, you will be still having all those unfulfilled desires. You will be thinking about them. And therefore, that force of that thought, that vasana, will take you to a place where all these desires can be fulfilled. So the direction in which we go after the death of the physical body is decided by these desires. How to know which is my most powerful desire? So we say, supposing, Lord Krishna appears before us and asks for us and tells us, ask for any boon. And this, let us say, is the time when you are about to give up the physical body. So what do you want at that time is your most powerful desire. And Shastram says that this kind of desire, the most powerful desire which you have, and one way of finding out is, if the Lord comes and says you have only one boon only, what will you ask for? That is your most powerful desire, in which you are completely bound. And Shastra says that that desire is the one at the time of the death of the physical body that desire will get activated. That desire will become powerful, and that desire will decide the direction and the journey of the jiva. So this is anatma kamaha, desire for anatma. What about the jnani? The jnani never looks at himself as an individual, right? Why? As a jivatma, you have relationships, you have duties, you have obligations, you have regrets, you have hundreds of things. You have panchakosha, sharidatraya, abhimanam, avankara, mamakara, all these things are there. As long as you look upon yourself as panchakosha, sharidatrayam, you will have ahankara and mamakara, and you will be never free from duties and obligations. But the jnani does not look upon himself as an individual, right? And here we're talking about the person who is a jivatma. He says, yaha kaman manyamana, constantly thinking about the objects of desire. And what kind of objects? Shankara adds, drishta adrishta vishayan kamayate. Any object which is drishta is known in this world. So lots of things, money, wealth, fame, everything. All that is drishta. But objects which are not known in this world, like going to Brahma Loka, going to Indra Loka, any of these things, they are adrishta phalam. So whole time this person is thinking about either drishta phalam or adrishta phalam. And word here is manyamanaha. Important word. It means dwelling, thinking about the object. And Shankara defines it. He says, tad gunan chintayan. Tad gunan means the attributes of those objects of desire, chintayan. I am constantly thinking about it. That is the definition of manyamana. Constantly obsessed with the attributes of the objects. And remember, we are all interested in any object only for the sake of the attributes of the object, not for the object's sake. Why are we interested in money? Because money gives me buying power, right? Buying power, I think, will give me happiness. Why am I interested in Swarga, Adrishtam? Because I think Swarga, I will have a better life, and therefore I will be happier there. So whenever we desire any object, we have to step back and tell ourselves that the desire for this object is propelled by what? Which is the attribute of that object which I am interested in. Once you do the analysis, then you look at the attribute, you will see the futility of the attribute. That's the only way to suppress or rather get rid of your desires. And this person doesn't do that. So he keeps on thinking about the attributes of all those objects. And therefore what happens? Therefore, sakaman kamayate. He desires various objects. To get those objects, more karma is done. By doing such karma, more desires are generated. So Shankara says, he is born among those objects. Why? For the purpose of enjoyment of those objects. So the desires for these objects, says Shankara, is the hetu, the reason for the performance of all kinds of actions, both dharmic and adharmic actions. So whatever kind of desires compel me to perform action, tatra tatra jayate. I am born again in the next life in an environment where I have the chance to fulfill those desires. And normally when you are born among objects, tatra tatra here means objects. But Shankara here says, the words tatra tatra jayate, the normal interpretation is what? I am born among those objects. Shankara makes a finer distinction. He says, don't think of tatra tatra as objects. Think of it as desire for those objects. So you are born again with a desire for the same objects, which is the correct interpretation, because it says your karma phalam will dictate the environment for your next birth. And if you are listening all the time to Vedanta, and supposing by some freak chance, even though you listened and listened and listened, you haven't got moksha. I know it won't happen to any of you, but supposing there is a person X who has been listening to Vedanta and he doesn't get moksha in this life, then Shankara says your next birth you will be born with a very strong desire for Vedanta, and therefore nothing has been lost. One more birth, so what? Okay. Then paryapta kamasya kritatmanastu in the words. So kritatma means one who has refined himself. How does one refine how do we refine ourselves? We convert ourselves from Jivatma to Paramatma. You look at that word, paryapta kamasya or paryapta kamaha. So you can break it up into pari plus apta plus kamaha. So kamaha, desires. Apta means desires which have come to you in the sense been fulfilled, and pari means totally. Pari samantataha, totally. So paryapta kama means samantataha apta kamaha, desires which have been totally fulfilled. Such a person is called paryapta kama, also called kritatmana. This kritatmana, the person, the jivatma, has refined himself through jnanam. He has converted himself from nature of jivatma. He has understood that he is not the jivatma. He has become the paramatma. The refinement is nothing but removal of the misconception that I am the body with the atma, and replacing it with the knowledge I am the atma who has got an incidental body. Right? So this person is the kritatma. Now, because I am paramatma, all desires are located where? Located in me only. And therefore, I am kritatmana. I have no more desires to be fulfilled for giving me happiness. When one says that the jnani is fulfilled, he has no desires, then why does he work? His service now is not for himself. He doesn't do any activity for himself. All activity is for the good of the world, for the service of the world. And that activity of a jnani is given the name Loka Sangraha, for the actions for the benefit of mankind. These are not desires arising out of fulfillment, out of a desire to be happy. His actions are not from desire to be happy. His actions are not for fulfillment. His actions are arising out of fulfillment. Like a person singing because he is happy, not singing because he wants to be happy. So desire with fulfillment, with purnatvam, is a desire to give to the other people, give to the world. Desire without purnatvam is a desire to take from the world. So his desires are all fulfilled. Why? Because of the knowledge of the Paramatma Tattvam. Aham Brahmasmi, knowledge he has. I am Brahma, knowledge he has. And because of that, all desires have been fulfilled. And therefore, this Kritatmanaha is a person who has brought about a distance between himself and apara and his own apara form. So he has two forms, the para form, the higher form, and the lower form, which we saw in the 7th chapter of the Gita. The para form is there, apara form is there. And this person who was so far predominantly in his apara form, in the lower form, has distanced himself from that. How? By simply acknowledging that he is the higher form, he is the para form. The lower form is born out of ignorance, and this person has now established himself in the higher form, where ihaiva, in this very janma itself. And because he has done that, sarve kamaha praviliyanti, all the binding desires, they are dissolved. This is Jivan Mukti. And Shankara says, Kritatmanastu ihaiva has to be understood as when the body is still existing. So it is Jivan Mukti, not Videha Mukti. What happens to him? Sarve kamaha, all the desires which are the cause of activity, praviliyante, Pravilyante is nashyanti. They get destroyed. This is the meaning given by Shankara to the word pravilyanti. Nashyanti iti arthaha. They get destroyed. Why? Because tat, that desire, janma hetuhu, which is the cause of birth, vinasha, has been destroyed. And because of that, na jayante iti abhiprayah. He is not born again. This is the idea conveyed by this mantra. Okay, we take a small break in case you have any questions before the third mantra. It's nothing new, it's all the same old things, but being repeated again and again and again, because that is the only way we get to remember. No questions? Shall we move on? Okay. So we look at the third mantra. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyaha Na Medhaya Na Bahuna Shrutena Yame Vaisha Pranute Tena Labhyaha Tasyesha Atma Virunute Tanum Swam. So, in his commentary on this mantra, Shankara gives a very tiny introduction. So he says, if Atma Prapti, that is, if gaining the Atma is the greatest of all gains. Yadevam sarvalabhat paramam Atma labha. If indeed Atma labha, which is gaining knowledge of the Atma, is sarvalabhat paramam, the greatest of all gains, of all labha, then he says, the Pupa says that for that purpose, for gaining this kind of objective of Atma Jnanam, you should apply means like pravachanam, like discussions. So this is the statement made by a Purvapakshi. Shankara says this statement could be made. A person might think that for gaining knowledge, you should do sadhana like pravachanam. You should do chanting, you should listen to discourses, all these things you should do. And he says, because such a view is often heard, in those days it was often heard, he says, this particular mantra, the third mantra, is for the purpose of countering that view. And he says, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya. Exactly counter of what the Purvapakshi is saying. This Atma cannot be understood through Pravachanam alone. Now, what is Pravachanam? Shankara clarifies that here Pravachanam means Veda Shastra Adhyana, which means the word Adhyanam means it is the recitation of the Veda. Like you can be a Dvedi or a Trivedi or a Chaturvedi. And Shankara is referring to something called the Brahma Yajna. If you have seen a Brahma Yajna anywhere, even in movie something, you will find that whichever Veda they are chanting, the first mantra of the Veda is first chanted, and then they repeat the first mantra and chant the entire Veda. Of course, you belong to various branches called shakhas. So whichever shakha you belong to, that entire Veda is chanted. It lasts for hours together. So this is what Shankara is referring to over here by the word pravachanena. And he says this Atma cannot be realized through Vedic chanting alone. So here, Ayam Atma is na Ayam Atma. This Atma, you have to break that word properly. And the na has to be carried forward and put in front of labhya. So the Anvaya will be Ayam Atma Pravachanena na labhya. This Atma cannot be gained by pravachanams, by Vedic chanting alone. And then na medhaya. What is medhaya? Shankara says granthartham dharana shaktaya, committing the entire Veda to memory, entire grantham, the text to memory, is called medhaya. So he says by committing it to memory also, there is no great achievement. In fact, if you have seen traditional chanting, consider having the textbook in front of you is a defect. It's a dosha. And therefore, Vedic Pandits are supposed to have phenomenal memory, right? That is the Meda Shakti. That Meda Shakti itself is a vibhuti. It's a gift of the Lord. But that gift is not sufficient to gain Atmajnana. The second thing also Shankara dismisses, saying that neither by chanting it regularly nor by committing the entire Shastram to memory are you going to get moksha. Na bahuna shrutena. Na bahuna shrutena means by becoming a scholar also, you are not going to get moksha. Here, what does it mean? Shrutena is from the word shru, which means to inquire, which means vichara. So we have sudden contradiction over here. We all thought so far that Lord of Shravanam is the right way, right? Then why is he saying that na bahuna shrutena? So Shankara says that it can mean Shravanam is the only way. Shravanam is the only way really which Veda recommends for getting moksha. And so when he says na bahuna shrutena here, he means a whole lot of Shravanam, but without the right teacher, without the right acharya. Without the right acharya, the Shravanam will do you no good. So this is Shankara's explanation. And Anandagiri is a sub-commentator who has written a tika on this. It's called a sub-commentary, it's called a tika. He writes here that Shravanam here also means Shravanam of non-Vedantic Shastra. Vedantic Shastram Shravanam will give you moksha. Non-Vedantic Shravanam will not give you moksha. So two meanings are here. One is that Shravanam of Vedantic Shastram, either by yourself, which means reading, or without the correct teacher, which means listening to all assorted discourses all over the place. One day something, other day something. There is no systematic teaching. So it is not going to give you moksha. Anandagiri, of course, says that you can listen to a whole lot of Vedantic texts. But if it is not Upanishad itself, or you're listening to other Shastram, then Yoga Shastram, for example, you are not going to get moksha. Right? Two clear meanings are here. And then comes a slightly controversial thing, which says, third line, Yame Vaisha Vranute Tena Labhya. Yam Eva Esha Vranute Tena Labhya. So Vranute means to choose. Okay. And Yam Eva Esha Vranute Tena Labhya. What is the normal meaning? Anybody? It's a very famous line. Does anybody know the normal meaning of Yam Eva Esha Vranute Tena Labhya?
It reveals itself to that whom it chooses. Something like that.
Correct. So it means that one whom the Atma chooses, that person alone will gain the knowledge. Okay. So this is an interesting observation, right? Because this is very often interpreted. In fact, if you look at a lot of teachers, they will interpret it this way, that moksha is not possible unless Atma chooses you. So Atma is your Ishvara, of course. So unless Ishvara chooses you, moksha is not possible. In that case, there is a problem. What is the problem? What is the problem if I have to wait till Ishvara chooses me?
First of all, Ishvara is now presented with a choice and he has to choose.
Yeah.
That is problem number one. Second, then what about my free will and my effort? I can just keep waiting, right?
Yes. So Shankara enters into a bit of a grammatical. Okay, I'm sorry about this, but this is the only way to explain. Okay. There is a grammatical explanation to this. Look at the words Tena Labhya. Labhya means gained. Tena is the word which is to be discussed. So Tena, it's passive voice. Labhya is Tena is being affixed to Labhya. What is the doubt? The doubt is in Sanskrit grammar, no, first of all, tena is tritiya vibhakti. It is the third case. Okay. In the third case, there are at least two possible interpretations. One is called karane tritiya, one is called kartari tritiya. Okay. So in English, when you say karane tritiya or when you say kartari tritiya, I am saying that tena labhyah means, if you use the word kartari means subject. Okay, the person. So if I am using the word tena in kartari tritiya, then it means, does Upanishad say, what is the Upanishad? Does it mean Atma is attainable by the person? Tena here becomes by the person. Tena becomes equal to the person. And therefore, tena labhyah, using the kartari tritiya interpretation, becomes Upanishad says that Atma is attainable by the person. By the person means by the sadhaka. Or if you use karane tritiya, and karane tritiya, karanam is the instrument, right? Karta is the subject. And that's why kartari tritiya means, the interpretation is that Atma is attainable by the person. Karane means through the instrument. Okay. So karanam is through the instrument. So when you use the karane tritiya interpretation, you have to say that Upanishad says Atma is applicable, obtainable through the instrument. So there are two meanings of this tena. One is by the person, the other is through the instrument. Both are tritiya vibhakti. So what is the correct interpretation of the question? Supposing you take the second interpretation, by the person, right? Then yame vaisha vranute tena labhyah. This Atma will be attainable by that person, tena labhyah. Which person? Esha vranute, whom this Atma chooses. Okay, that is the first interpretation, which is the normal interpretation given by a lot of teachers and a lot of texts. Okay, so remember, the Esha here means Ishvara or Atma. Tena here means the sadhaka, the Vedantic seeker. So the meaning becomes Atma is attainable by that person whom the Atma chooses. And therefore the decision shifts into the hands of the Paramatma, not in the hands of the seeker. So okay, moksha is possible only with Paramatma's choosing you. So Paramatma's grace, highlighting Ishvara Anugraha, right? Okay, Shankara doesn't take the interpretation. He doesn't explain. But as Meda mentioned, this interpretation takes you away from the equation, because you are not using your free will at all. Secondly, it presents Ishvara with a choice. Now the thing is, Ishvara Anugraha, we talked about it in Bhagavad Gita. How is Ishvara Anugraha available?
By earning it.
By earning it. That grace is available not just to me, not to the Vedantic seeker. It is available for everybody. But the effort to tap that grace is necessary. So when you take that interpretation, you cannot say this, that Ishvara is making a choice. Ishvara's grace is available. But to tap it, you need to make an effort, which is the sadhana. And further, what is this topic under discussion? The sadhana which is to be done by the seeker. Contextually, when you say that we are discussing the sadhana to be done by the seeker, Ishvara Anugraha, or the grace of Ishvara, is not the job of the seeker. It is not falling into the hands of the seeker. It is not sadhana at all. And therefore, Kartri Tritiya, this interpretation of tena as by the person, is to be rejected. This is what Shankara says. And therefore you take Karana Tritiya, because Karana means the instrument, the sadhana itself here. And that is the correct interpretation. And Shankara says, whenever there is a conflict between grammatical meaning and contextual meaning, what meaning should you take?
Contextual meaning.
Contextual meaning. Why?
Well, because words have their own limitation and one always has to see the before and after of it, in what
Exactly.
context. it's being
Because
said.
grammar, Vyakaranam, is a supportive tool. It cannot be the primary giver of the meaning. The Shruti has to be the primary giver of the meaning. The Shruti is talking about sadhana, then the grammatical meaning has to be reinterpreted or twisted to make it align with the Shruti meaning. And therefore he says, Eshaha here is not the Atma. Eshaha here is sadhaka. And Yam is the Atma. And therefore he says, by what sadhana is this Atma gained? Yam eva paramatmanam eva. That Atma is gained by what? By whom? Eshaha. Eshaha is the sadhaka, the vidwan. And Vranute means he chooses. So tena maranena. By that seeker, by the Vedantic seeker, by the vidwan choosing the Paramatma, which means choosing that sadhana. Esha para atma labhyaha. Only if you choose the sadhana, then only will that Atma be gained. Na annena sadhanantarena. By no other sadhana can you get moksha. You have to choose. You have to choose the sadhana of Shravanam, Maranam, and Nididhyasanam. And therefore says that Vidwan who chooses the Atma alone, he alone will get moksha. By his choice alone is the Atma gained. It is not by the choice of Ishvara. It is not by Ishvara choosing you. It is by you choosing an appropriate sadhana. The entire shift in the interpretation is that you become the center. You have to always make the effort. Atma becomes the object of his desire. Okay, now here also, is it correct to say Atma becomes the object of desire?
Acharya, I have many objections to this statement
Okay, let us hear some of them.
made in this one, which is, there was this grammatical interpretation and the literal interpretation, but the Vedantic view is that Atma is not something to be gained in the first place. So
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
Right. So it can never be the object of desire, right? Really speaking, any thought which you have, any desire is only a thought, right? So any thought which you have can gain the status of a desire, can be labeled desire only when it is something which is not attained, right? I can say I want a Mercedes Benz. That is a desire. Well, I don't have a Mercedes Benz. But I am already Brahman. I am already Atma. And really speaking, there is nothing to attain. There is nothing to gain. Since there is nothing to gain, this thought is really no desire at all. And therefore, here the word desire has to be taken as choosing to know that I am the Atman, not choosing to become Atman. And Shankara says here, this choosing to know that I am Atman, that choice is exercisable only by renouncing all other desires. That is his point. If you bring the choice of knowing as number one, every other desire of yours has been renounced. Then only tasya esha atma vivrunute tanum swam. To him alone the Atma revealed itself. Because the moment he gets the knowledge, there is no difference between the getting the knowledge and the Atma revealing itself. Right? Like switching on the light in the dark room and seeing the objects in that room, there is no time gap. It's not that I first switch on the light and then I see the objects. The objects reveal themselves the moment the light is lit. Similarly, one has to choose to know. It's like having a mirror in my room. That mirror is for the use of everybody. But only if I choose to go to the mirror and look into it, I can see my face. Okay. Then there's one more question I can ask. How can you say that the Atma which you already are will be accomplished by choosing of the Atma? The answer here is that word attainment, getting moksha, has to be understood as gauna labhaha, figurative gain. Why is it figurative gain? Why does Shankara give the word gauna labhaha? Gauna labha literally means a gain which is figurative, an attainment which is figurative.
Because till now I didn't know, but now I know. So it's in a sense again, but not really again.
There really was no loss at all, right? It is not that you lost Brahman. Therefore, the loss was figurative. Because the loss is figurative, the gain also has to be figurative. Okay, so with this, we'll stop for the day.
Acharya, can we think of it this way, the gain in the sense that when the antakaran is concentrated on Brahma, when there is only Brahma vichara, and then when automatically there is nothing else to gain, when all desires have naturally dissolved, then the one thing that automatically remains is only that Brahma, and that is what is being called as a gain, the thing that remains.
It has never
always,
really gone away.
yeah,
Right?
what was always there,
Yeah, it has
and
never
what
really gone.
remains. Yeah.
So yeah, you could think of it that way. But the assimilation is in terms of knowing that I am Brahman. That is one part. The second part is constantly remembering that I am Brahman, which is the more difficult part, okay? Like knowing that I am Brahman with a little bit of study and then Mananam Magare, it's all right. But to constantly remember that I am Brahman all the time, in and through all the situations, that is the figure, that is the gain as such. That is the Atma Labhya.
Yes, because finally, who is it and who is it that is gaining what?
Yeah, so those questions, when you stop asking yourself,
Yeah,
who is gaining, what am I gaining, who am I,
yeah,
then only the gain is there.
yeah.
So you will notice in the groups, people keep on asking questions about what happened, who is this, why should I do it? The main question is what? Who am I? That is never asked. The moment that thing is clear, that I am Brahman, then everything that you see is also Brahman. So where is the question of asking for anything at all?
Yeah.
And who is to ask whom?
Who is asking?
Who is asking and who is he asking?
And why? Yeah.
There is nobody to give you anything. Yeah? That Ishvara of yours is a mithya, huge mithya, which is contained in you. So where can you ask? What can you ask? That is why at the pinnacle of Vedanta, unless your mind has been very what you call purified by a long study, everything can shake. Your whole foundation can shake because you're just removing the entire foundation which you had.
Yes, and also these things can't be, just so casually said to just about anybody.
It can't be said. So
Yeah.
that is why we say it takes time. There was a question about Mandukya in one of the groups, which I answered in a very, very brief manner. But Mandukya, how can you understand unless you have studied at least 4 or 5 Upanishads? So Mandukya is what destroys the entire foundation of your life. Okay, so with this, we should stop today. We only have a few more things to go. So hopefully in maybe 3 sessions or 4 sessions, we'll complete. And then we'll start Atma Bodha. It's a Vedantic text. So thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidam पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णम् एवावशिष्यते। Om Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya.
Namaskar.